We've got 2 weeks left. We're in week 17, and there's only a few possible places for people that have made the playoffs to get into the playoffs. That and more this time on Sports Hour. It is week 17 here now, and we're getting to a point in the season where it's kind of we're trying to figure out now who could actually make the playoffs if the playoffs were to end today. And we're in week 17 now, so it's going to be 1 week left in the regular season. And to be honest, it could be anybody at this point that makes the playoffs and is able to clinch a divisional title. However, it's going to be very tough for some teams to make the playoffs at this point. And who knows whether a team that is 2 games behind is going to be able to do it after this week's playoff potential. Honestly, at this point, anybody, any team right now who's is still got a pretty good chance is going to be able to could potentially make the playoffs at this point. But it's going to be close. And all these teams here are looking and hoping to make the playoffs. Alright, so let's get on to the last week's playoffs here. All right, so looking at the playoffs, we'll see a few things. The Ravens and the Tigers are very close to deciding who's going to be in. The Browns aren't in the position at this point to be the division leader, but it still could potentially be them as the divisional leaders. The Ravens, Tigers, and Browns are all fighting for the division title. Or we do not. I wouldn't say we have any idea of who's actually going to win. The Knights and Browns are currently also fighting for that very same position. Currently, if it were to end today, the Browns would have that position, but anything could happen within these next couple of weeks. The Indians, Falcons, and Hawks were all eliminated last week. The Pirates, Dragons, Angels, and Bulldogs are currently still in a possibility of the playoffs, but that requires them both to win these next two games, and all the other teams lose all their games, including the Knights and the Browns. So the Browns or the Knights win. These teams in pink right now are all eliminated. And it is very likely that one of those teams will be eliminated at this point. But who knows if that's actually going to be what's going to happen or not. As for the ABL, the Lions are on the edge of clinching the division. They're not the bye, which means they won't play in round one. It's so close right now. You would think, and we would think at this point is that the Lions would have clinched, but the Bengals can still tie them. And unfortunately, if the Lions lose their next two games, and the Beagles win their next two games, and have more points at the end of that position, then the Beagles will have got a division title. Beagles in the last couple have not at this point, if I'm correct. We'll look at this. Beagles in the last year didn't make it at that point. I believe they made it they lost the Ball Bowl, but I believe that would actually put them. They were in the divisional leaders 2 years ago, and this last year they actually made the playoffs and lost the Ball Bowl. But they actually went as the one of the last round things. But that time there were 8 teams, I believe, that made the playoffs. I might be a little bit wrong about that. There were at least 7 at that point. So who knows what's going to happen with those playoffs positions. Moving on to they have a lot of teams that were eliminated in the NBL. All these teams that are 6-10 or worse are eliminated at this point. Chargers have half a game. If they lose the game at all, they will be eliminated. Same thing with the Dolphins and the Tex. Westville is still in the possibility of being in this proper position, but they have to win 2 games. So basically, here's the thing. All the teams that are currently in the hunt would have to win both of their games. So any of the teams that lose, whether or not the Bobcats win or not, if any of these teams do happen to lose, it doesn't matter. They're going to be eliminated from the playoffs and be put into the eliminated list. For the table of 6-10, the best they can get is in fact 9-10, and Bobcats have a 8-7-1 at this point, which puts them half a game ahead of 2 games, which means anyone who's 2.5 games behind are eliminated. And this would be 2.5 games behind. So it's going to be very interesting. Moving on to the advance, everyone has clinched the division. There has also a clinched wild card. Supermen have not clinched a wild card at this point, although they are very close. The Bobcats, to be rephrased that actually, the Supermen have clinched a wild card spot, and the Bobcats have clinched a wild card slot. And along with the Werewolves have also clinched a wild card. Clinched at least a wild card slot. Werewolves have not clinched the playoffs in the context of divisional, but they have indefinitely clinched wild cards. So we have already decided all the teams, except for the Bobcats. The Bobcats have not decided at this point that they are in the playoff position for sure. There is a good chance that the Bobcats are. Bobcats currently would be in the 7th position if the playoffs were to end today. So there's only one slot, and it's right here. So right now, actually, all of these teams are currently in the pink. Is that right? No, it's the wrong one. All those teams in the pink. If any of them lose, if they lose at all, they are out. And Westfield does have a little bit of better factor if the Bobcats do lose, and the Westfield does win. That puts them in 9, and if they win and the Bobcats lose, they can still make the playoffs at that point. But it's still going to be very tough at this point in time. I also realize this is not what... There we go. A, B, L. So there's actually no positions that we even know of at this point. I have a sheet hidden here that we're talking about the playoffs. That's hidden. Well, if we hide it, there's what the roster is, and it is best of 3. They will be going back to back to back. When I'll do the not backyard baseball, the playoffs. I'll be doing this one. Mac will go to here, so there's really nothing to worry about that. When these 3 teams place, if they win 2-0, it's done, and they'll move on to the next one. So, and the events will be over, I believe, if I'm correct about that. Let me just make sure. Yeah, so the last day of NBL playoffs is Monday the 6th. Because the playoffs will end up occurring and finishing up on the 4th. I have the playoffs, I think, a little bit wrong on that one. I'll check that. Oh, I know why. Because here's the thing. The games end officially, if it's 5/26, here. The last day of the playoffs is officially the 11th, I believe. I'm going to check to make sure on that, but that is how it will work out in the end. We have week 18 already set up, by the way, but it doesn't make any difference right now. Let me just check to see. I have calendar. I have the last day of the NBL playoffs being the 6th. It's NBL season, not playoffs. Oh, cool. Yeah, it's the last day of the NBL season is officially the 6th of March. Last day of NBL playoffs officially is Saturday. The following Saturday. So it's actually not very much chance. If you look here, I don't have this you won't see the sheet up here, but June 11th is the last day because they'll be going back to back. There's not really much of a rest period for any things like this. So if you look here, like these games will all occur, if I'm correct, they'll be occurring at the same time too. on 5/27. Is that right? Not 5/27. Official last day, I think, is the 5th. So these will start occurring. I will point out they're actually it's a little bit weird on minutes, but they will occur officially on 6/1. I believe is the correct day. It's the right day. Is that right? It's not 6/1. It's 6/5. So this round happens on 6/5. They will all occur in the same day. Every one of these things happen on 6/5. Officially, well, 6/5 through 6/7. So 6/5 through 6/7 means in most idiots. This round will occur from 6/8 to 6/10. I may be all wrong about this. Oh, I'm looking it wrong. Yeah, so it's 6/5. So I will say it's a little bit weird for the last week of the playoffs for the season. There's not really much of a break. Because this occurs 6/11 through 6/12. And the final round here occurs on, which day is it? Six 13 through 6/15. So there are back to back to back. I believe we'll put this out. This one's a little bit wrong because what's going to happen is these games will happen on Saturday at 12. These games will happen at 1:30 on Saturday. These games will happen. All those games will happen. This game will happen. Do I have Sunday? Do we have Sunday? I'm checking all this thing. 6/5. Do we have Sunday? We do not have Sunday. So officially, the games are actually a little bit weird for this week. The first games will occur Wednesday at 1 o'clock. So the first two games will happen that Wednesday starting at 2:45. Then we have Thursday. There's not much for me. Thursday we have a game starting at 11 o'clock. There will be 2 games at that time. Then we have a Thursday. We have two other Thursday games. Yes, there's quite a bit of Thursday. Games. We have 2 games at Thursday that will occur at 1. So there will not be a Sports Hour episode in Week 18. There will be a short one, I believe. I don't know for sure at this point. I have to look at it. Then there's one here at 4 o'clock. So there's a lot of games that occur. Yes. And then on Friday, the final day, all their days will no. Occur on Friday. That gives them only basically one day, and there's not really much of one. Friday we have one. We have a one game, a 1:45, 11:45 game. That's not alright. It's 1:45. We have a 2:50 game, and finally we have one at 4 o'clock. So the games are very weird this in the last week, and that is looking at this. That means on Wednesday the 1st will be the first game of the series, and then on Friday will be the last game, and then Saturday they'll have all day of Saturday to work out the strategies, and we'll have a Sports Hour episode on Saturday possibly, and then we'll figure out from that point, because then they'll have on the 5th. There will be 5th will be the first day of the playoffs for that. And the playoffs will occur all in. They will not be all occurring at the same time. I'm fairly sure, if I'm correct here. This one will occur. Oh, I can just tell you right now. This is going to be 6, 5. And we'll figure that out as we go on. All right, now looking through this week. This is going to be a very interesting week. Predictions for the first game, and there are a lot of divisional games. I think even the Knights and Bengals game might be divisional, to be honest. No. So, here's the game. I gotta look at all the things I've done for the last couple of minutes. And the idea we have here for this things is Westville and the Colts had a pretty. Westville must win this game in order to officially be even possibly in the playoffs. If Westville doesn't win, they're out the playoffs, most likely. Officially, there is a possibility if the Bobcats do lose that they can make the playoffs, but unlikely. I have to predict in favor of Westville here. That's my prediction, but I think it's a 2-point prediction. I don't think the minus 13-14 sounds right at all. Ours and Lions, this is an important game because this decides where the Lions ensure a playoff position or not. Because the Lions do win. I've said it wrong. They have already ensured his playoff position at this point, but they could ensure the wild card, the bye, if they do in fact win this week. If they win, they're insured against the Otters. They insured and they have a bye. They for sure will have a bye, which means their last game doesn't even matter. They will still play it, but their last game doesn't matter. There's not as much rest, which means could be more potential for injuries at this point. But this is going to be a very important game, and honestly, this is the game of the week. It's not division. It's the game of the week. I go with a 2-point prediction in favor of the Otters. I predict the Otters will win this game. Because of the factor of what they've done all season, I think it's going to be a very close game. And I will say, if the Lions win, I'm perfectly happy for them. Yes. All right. Chargers and Supermen is a divisional game, and I don't have any question that the Supermen will win this game. I'm going to go with 3-point prediction in favor of the Supermen, mostly because the Chargers haven't really shown up for a lot of their games. In some of the games they've shown up, and the other games they have not. Dolphins and Athens, another divisional game, and this one's questionable to me because even though the Dolphins are not going to be in the playoffs unless they win against Athens, it just doesn't seem like there's much of a chance for the Dolphins. And honestly, I'm not 100% sure that's the actual divisional thing. But if they do win, I don't predict. I will say this is a tough game for both teams. I have to go with the Athens in this case because of the fact that I think Athens will have a much better chance of pulling this off. They have a much better defense, while the Dolphins, while they have a decent defense and a pretty good defense overall team, I have to go with the Athens in this case. And the Athens already clinched the division, so there's no point. They're going to get, if we look at this, they will not necessarily get the 4th seed, by the way, at this point. With next week, we'll have some insurances. If the Lions do win, they'll have the first round bye. And depending on whether the Otters, if the Werewolves win, and the Otters and the Athens do lose, there is a possibility that the clinch will be it. That's why they have not clinched the division. They haven't clinched the division yet because the Bobcats can still officially, although it's difficult, win that division. But as of right now, the Werewolves would have that clinched. Alright. And I'm going to have to predict in the favor of the Athens. I'm going to go with a 4-point prediction in favor of it. Panthers and Packers. Not going to say much in that. I have to go with the Panthers all day. I'm going to go with a 10-point prediction in favor of it. Ravens and Browns. This is a divisional matchup that really could be a big deal. Ravens and Browns. Browns currently are on the edge of the playoffs. Browns lose this week. It could potentially be the last thing they do before it, because if the Knights do win, they will have to win in order to get back into the playoffs. Browns are currently on the edge, and I'm unfortunately going to say it could be either way, either the Browns or the Knights that make the playoffs, really depending what happens. Luckily for the Ravens and Browns play this week, and it's not going to be a big deal. I'm going to go for a 1-point prediction in favor of the Ravens. I feel like the Ravens have a better chance of winning the game. Not just because of their record. Tex and Werewolves. This is important for the Werewolves to win, and I have to go with the Werewolves in this regard. 2-point. Nope, that's not right. 2-point prediction in favor of the Werewolves. However, I have to look at the Werewolves better. I think Werewolves is a better overall team than the Tex. However, I think this is going to be a very defensive battle throughout the end. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a very low-scoring game. Tigers and Lightning. Tigers need to win this. Kind of need to win this game to stay in top of the division, but it doesn't really matter to the Tigers. Tigers are currently not in first place by only a few points. Tigers are also behind in the possibility because they actually allowed more points than they have scored. Versus the Lightning, who have done the exact opposite. They've done terrible. I have to go with the Tigers winning this game. However, I think it's going to be a very close game in the end. 2-point prediction. Jets and Saints. I'm going to go with the Saints all day. And I honestly feel like this is going to be the game that really decides whether the Saints actually deserve to be in a playoff position. They're going to be in the playoffs. They're actually ensured a playoff position, or a position in the playoffs. They're not going to get the division, so they're actually ensured at this point a wild card slot. They can't do it. They can't get in it. And I'll point out that's the same thing with the Ravens and Tigers. as of right now. They're currently both in clinched X. We don't actually know which one they have. The Saints have clinched the wild card at this point because they can't win the division. As for the, we just don't know between the Browns and the Knights who's going to get that. That's my prediction. I'm going to predict a 6-point prediction in favor of the Saints. Dogs and Giants. This is an important game for the Dogs. It means nothing. Except if the Dogs do win, and they win both of their games, and the Browns do lose both of their games, they actually have a chance to get back into the playoffs and be the last seed. That, however, does require also the Knights and the Browns both to lose, and I don't think it's going to happen that way. But there's a good chance. I actually will predict, in this regard, the Giants do win this game, but I think it's going to be a very close game either way. 1-point prediction. Angels and Cardinals. I'm going with the Cardinals to win this game. It's a tough one because the Cardinals do have a fairly good opportunity, and the Angels have a very good defense. So, in my opinion, the Cardinals should lose this game in it, but I think it's going to be the Cardinals that's going to win this game. 4-point prediction in favor of the Hawks and Bulldogs. I don't know why I would even talk about this game, to be honest. Bulldogs should win this game all day. I'm going to go with a 10-point prediction in favor of the Bulldogs. I don't think there's any chance the Hawks will win this game, even though they have one of the highest ratings in the league. UNC and the Indians. Indians have the worst record, and literally the second, one of the worst records in the league. But they're not terrible in the context for their team can do. They just have had a really tough schedule. I mean, looking at their schedule overall, if you look at the ABL West, they've had a pretty tough schedule. 2.2 is pretty tough versus their opponent, their other players who also had a pretty tough hits. But then the Ravens had a really easy schedule. Yes. In context, the lowest schedule, I believe. Let's see if I can find which one is the lowest one. I'm not 100% sure which one is the lowest one. But the Ravens have a pretty low schedule overall. I would say the NBL South. It's probably the ABL South. I don't know. So the Ravens have the lowest overall schedule in the entire NBL. So it's going to be a pretty fascinating to see what's going to happen in that. But they don't have they have a pretty tough schedule. One of the tougher schedules, to be honest. And honestly, I think it's going to be a very interesting game. I have to go with UNC to win here, but I'm going to go with the possibility of it being a pretty decent 3-point prediction. Bobcats and Dragons, I would have picked, at the beginning of the season, I would have totally picked the Dragons. But honestly, I'm hoping the Bobcats do win this game. And I'm going to pick the Bobcats because I think the Dragons have kind of washed out at this point. They don't have anyone injured at this point, but it's going to be tough. I'm going to go with that being the team that wins here. I'm going to go with a 3-point prediction. I think it's going to be very close. Knights and Beagles, another game that's going to be really good. This is tough because at this point, who knows who can win this game? Who's going to win? The Knights are currently in 8. I have them in 9 for some reason. I don't know why I have them in 9 on this other sheet. I have them in 8, 7, and 1, which I don't know why I have them 8, 7, and 1. Oh, that's the Knights. The Bobcats are 8, 7, 1. At this point, it's really gonna be a tough game for either of these teams. My only thing is the only thing I can think about in this game is that the Beagles are very high scorers and have very good defense versus the other team they've got faced are decently high scorers but still allow a lot of points in the end. I have to go with the Beagles here, but I really kind of want to see the Knights win the game. 1 point prediction in this phase. Final game, Pirates and Falcons. This game means nothing. I'm gonna go with the Pirates to win this game in the end, even though I think it's gonna be it. I'm gonna go with a 2 point prediction. That is the predictions for this week, and if you can see, as you can see for these last couple seasons, who knows who's gonna be it? If we were looking at the next year's draft, which I will still hopefully do this a draft this next year. Currently, this is how it will work. I believe at this point, the Hawks haven't insured the first thing, but they currently would be 32nd, 31st, 30. That's weird. Indians are. I have this marked up a little bit wrong, I think. What have the Indians at? 4 and 11. Okay. I would have to say this is going to be very interesting. It would be interesting to see who actually hit. There's only 2 games left in the season, so next week we're going to have a lot of things to decide. That is all for Sports Hour in this week. Thank you guys for watching this episode of Sports Hour. We're going to get into it. There will not be a Sports Hour for week 18. There will be it'll be called the pre-playoffs, I believe, at that time. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next week.